Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and at least at the start of this episode, we're going to see if we can sort out that roll cage that I built last week and see if I can make it fit again. Okay, so welcome back guys, and if you weren't watching the last couple of episodes, I've put a link up above so you can catch up and see how I was building this roll cage. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I urge you to click that link and subscribe and hit the bell that let you know when I've put up some more crazy videos. Last time I built the whole cage, tacked it all together, and then I welded it up out of the car. I should have done it bolted into the car, but I didn't, and I'm paying the price now because basically the reason why welds shrink is because you are adding in metal while it is liquid. It is hot, so it's expanded. So this hot liquid metal is going in and everything's in the right shape, but as it cools it contracts again, and what it's done here is it's just contracted the cage and sort of tightened it all up so that now my feet don't fit the bolting holes anymore, do they? So I need to rectify that, but I'll just cover a couple of other points that people made before I get stuck in. There were a lot of questions asking me why I put this diagonal between the rear stays and not on the main hoop, and that's because, as per the regulation Schedule J of the Motorsport Australia roll cage regulations, it can go either on the main hoop or on the backstage. It just has to be diagonal and has to end above the driver. So that's what I've done, and I've set it at the back so that it's still a compliant roll cage, but I actually have room for luggage, because that's something I have learnt in Harry, is that I went to town and made this roll cage, and it's all sort of super safe and well and truly over-engineered, but it's actually really annoying because I can't get bags or anything into the back seat area because I've got these cross braces here that nothing will fit into. So I didn't want that issue with this. This is going to be made on a similar level to Harry, where it's a car that you can take to the track, but you can just drive it on the road. It's going to be comfortable. It's going to be a road car that you can do a few track days and just have some fun in. Want it universally usable, not just a stripped out interior in a car, which sounds good in theory, but when you ever try and drive it on the road, you can drive it for about half an hour and then your ears are ringing and it's just not comfortable, and you really don't want to drive it. I want you to be able to get in this car and just drive and enjoy. So we need to start rectifying my issues on this cage. What I can do, at least on this back foot over here, is I'm going to cut the foot off, and then I can just there's the leg of the cage in the right spot, so I can cut the foot off and re-weld the foot on in the right spot. So that's what I'm going to do for the first one, and then for these legs I've got another plan, and we'll have to see what what will happen. All right, I made a new base plate up for the cage and bolted it into the body of the car. I'm not going to tack it in just yet. It's bolted in on the one place on this far side at the rear, and obviously these two arms aren't quite touching. So I've got a plan to get those arms back into place, and that is going to involve a block of wood and a jack. All right, well, that was a bit of tweaking backwards and forwards. It took me a while to come up with the method I wanted to use, because I was worried that when I pushed against either side of this cage that that whatever I pushed would flick up or down or something. So what I ended up using was a piece of timber. I made sure it was broad so that I got a broad base on it so that it wasn't going to sort of flick out sideways. It could only sort of flick up or down. And because it's got a nice flat base on it, I used this scissor jack, actually stolen out of the Audi that is donating his engine to the Boxster, and that's got a nice flat base. It's got a nice groove that sits in the tube, and by using this, it was a nice safe method of pushing without the thing wanting to bounce on me. And yeah, it was only out by 5 mil either side, so it just tweaked it back into shape. Hasn't made any noticeable difference to the tube or anything like that, so none of that is an issue. Now, as you saw, I remade the base plate at the back here, so now I'm going to get the TIG welder out. I'm going to have to try and prop the pedal up somehow and get it welded up in the car this time so that it doesn't move. All right, so we have now a cage that bolts in and out as I want. It actually fits again. And one thing that I did on my 911 that I also want to definitely do on this car to help add rigidity to the shell. At the moment, this cage bolts on down on the floor of the car, and this is all sitting here, but in some ways the shell could move around outside of what the cage currently does. So the cage would be solid and the rest of the shell still has some flex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie it into the seatbelt hole. So this is where my fingers are on either side here. That is where the factory seatbelts bolt in. I'm going to make some tabs now so that the cage will actually bolt in and the seatbelt will bolt through a hole in the cage. That way we can have it nice and secure, and it's going to just help stiffen up the whole chassis a lot more. Okay, so you can see I cut out a couple of tabs. I just bent them in the vise to get them to just sit just nice and up next to the cage here like this. So I'm just going to clamp this in now. The end is just the right size to fit over the spacer for the seat belts, and it will sit really nicely in the back of the car, giving enough room for the seatbelt to come out underneath and go over the shoulder, so that's all going to be good. I will be doing something with the seatbelts in the future. I don't like the standard fixed seat belts. I will try and put some retractable ones in there. I've already got some ideas of how I'm going to do that. So now it's time to weld them in. All right, well, the roll cage is good. I'm quite happy with it now. It all bolts in where it's supposed to. It's now tied into the seat belts. It is all nice and solid. I am happy. We have a roll cage that is good. Now I need to have a look at the next thing, which is something I'm not really looking forward to. I have to jump under the car and put the gearbox back in so that we can start measuring up for a new tail shaft. The next thing we need to look at is the drive shafts or tail shafts. So I've got here the original Alpha tail shaft, and I've also got a Subaru BRZ manual tail shaft. So what I need to do now is sort of try and cobble this all in the car, get it pretty much where I want it, get the suspension in the rear, roughly where the regular ride height is, and do some measurements so that I can send this away and get it cut and mounted and balanced nicely. I'm not going to do it myself because I'm not set up for it. You really need to balance these properly. You can't just sort of chop it off and weld it on. I could do that, but it would probably vibrate like crazy, so that's not what I want. But it means wrestling with this gearbox. I've already wrestled it back under the car. I've got to wrestle it up, bolt it on, and then we can actually do some measuring. So let's start crawling under there and get it going. All right, well, that is always a bit of wrestling getting that gearbox back in, just because it's on the ground and I can't sort of get under it very well, and it's heavy and it's awkward. But the gearbox is back in again, and now it's time to measure up the drive shaft. Now, to measure up the drive shaft length, what I really need to do is work out actually what sort of ride height I'm going to be running at, and set the diff height, jack the diff height up to get it to sit at roughly at what ride height is. And I thought, if I'm going to work out what ride height I'm going to set it at, or a ballpark of that, might be time to try out the wheels on the car. So actually, I had a set of wheels sorted out over 12 months ago. I'd worked out what I was going to get. There was a supplier in the UK contacted me and was going to be getting me some wheels custom made to the sizes I wanted and all the rest of it. And then they ghosted me. The company's still around, but they've just stopped talking to me. Didn't even tell me that they're not supplying them or whatever, which really frustrating, because I just want to get the car done. And I actually finally settled on arguably the best looking wheels for this car anyway, and that are these babies, which are a 15 by 8. They're basically an enlarged replica of the original 13-inch GTA wheels that were on the race cars. So these are going to look very nice on the car. Ooh, it looks so good. I'm thinking that is roughly ride height. It's obviously very hard to work out ride height when it's not A, on the ground, and B, have tyres on it, but it gives you a bit of an idea where the wheels sit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get under there and start measuring up the tail shaft that we need to make up. I've been on the phone to Benny's Custom Works, just getting some advice, because he's obviously made a few of these in the past. I have never, so I'm going to have a quick look and sort of work out exactly the lengths I need, and we'll get them off to the tail shaft shop. All right, so the gearbox is in the back of the car, and basically where I'm measuring is inside this cup from the edge of this seal in here. So from that face there through to the mounting face of the flange for the diff. And so the measurement I got, this is the BRZ tail shaft, and the measurement I got is about that length there, 1076. So we're going to be chopping off about 315 mil off the end of the BRZ tail shaft, which will possibly make this probably a little bit short. The issue is that the angles are going to get quite steep when obviously if the center bearing on it is fixed and we have a really short tail section, you're going to start getting some steep angles on the uni joints with the suspension. We'll have a look, we'll talk to the drive shaft shop, but we may end up making just a one solid rear axle rather than splitting it up with a bearing. So I'm going to get those measurements off now and yeah, see what they can do about making me a tail shaft that will fit. All right, well, we have the tail shaft all measured up. We have the length we need to get that off to the tail shaft guys. And I'm loving how this car's looking with the wheels on it. And some of you may notice that they stick out a little bit further off the car. But you also will have, maybe those of you who watched previously will have seen that I'm not a big fan of the GT-AM arches. So I'll leave some things up to your imagination that we may get into next week. But I'm definitely out of time for this week, so I think that means it's time for Fun Facts with Mrs. Jeff.
Hey guys, in 1929, Enzo Ferrari began his own firm, which he called Scuderia Ferrari, meaning Ferrari stables. Now, its main role was to assist wealthy Alfa Romeo customers with their racing efforts. His deal with Alfa Romeo at the time exchanged a guarantee of technical assistance for shares in his company. And Ferrari had similar deals with Shell, Pirelli and Bosch at the same time. To supplement his stable of amateur drivers, he lured some of the top drivers of the time like Giuseppe Campari and Tazio Nuvolari. In his first year, Scuderia Ferrari could boast 50 full and part-time drivers. It was a sensation, the biggest team ever assembled by one individual. No drivers were paid, but they received a percentage of the prize money. The basic concept was that the driver could turn up at the track, his car would be waiting for him, all fees and entry costs were handled, and technical assistance was available, all for a price. Enzo himself drove his last race in 1931 as soon after he found out he was going to be a father. During his driving career, he participated in 41 races and he won an impressive 11 of those.
All right, well, done for another week. The roll cage is looking good. It's all tied into the car now. That's going to add a lot of extra support to the structure of it. And, oh, I'm loving these wheels. They look so good.
Looking very shiny.
I am very happy they look good. It's finally good to see the wheels on the car and actually sort of see sort of how it will sit, and oh yeah, it's given me an extra boost of
enthusiasm
for the
and
wheels.
energy.
That's a good one. Yes,
because you lack enthusiasm and energy.
I'm quite an enthusiastic person.
Shy, quiet person.
All right, guys. As always, please like, subscribe, and help us out.
Yeah, if you want to see the videos a day early, you can join us on Patreon.
Yep.
Patreon. You are a patron on Patreon.
Yes.
And you get to watch them for a day earlier with no ads.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, we'll see you next week. See you guys.
Now, its main role was to assist the Damn! In 1929, his deal with Alfa Ferrari. What did I say? Alfa Ferrari. Oh God, I'm very, very tough. Soon after, he found out he was going to be his father. A father, not his father. Now, I know that.
Do you?